Mm, I hope that we'll be able to finish the platform discussion on 4G part uh, and begin 5G discussion in our next class, in the second class of this week. For NAS part, uh, this figure okay, this figure I have updated uh, with the content of the messages. We have discussed the procedure last time that the enemy sends the INC of the EV, and then the HSS determines the HSS first identifies the user, and then it generates a vector, which is the composition of these four things: brand, AUTN, XRS, and probably remember the purpose was uh, for AUTN. The purpose was uh, to let the EV authenticate, actually authenticate the or check the validity of the sender network who is sending the message. So out of these four, three are forwarded to the EU. XRS does not send, and it keeps that. Uh, the EV generates. I'm going through it again because last time found that the students were a little confused with a few things. Okay. Uh, the EV generates. I mean, that's why I also thought after the class last time that I should add the, the content here, the message. Then it looks very clear. Okay. My description was not probably that clear in the last class. Now probably it will be very clear. That the EV also is. I mean, it, HSS has the permanent key. It knows that there is a permanent 128 bits long key. He also has that permanent key in the stored in the scene. So anyway, from a once it receives AUTN, it can validate okay the network is okay, and from using K and random number, it can generate RES, okay, the response or RES, which is actually nothing but what HSS is also generated. The same RES value HSS is generated, and it called it X error, X RES. Okay. This X was added to that. It's the same thing generated, but it was called an X error. So you generates RES and uh, sends it to enemy, and HSS generates RES, XRS, and sends it to enemy. If this XRS and RES match, or the enemy finds that they are the same, then the enemy realizes that the EV is a valid user. Nobody is impersonating the actual user. And the purpose of keyset identifier is just to indicate that the context, okay, whatever is set up with this EPS again procedure, that's now that this is still valid. So a key is generated here, KACME, and that is stored, and that will work as the context for all other security measure that KSME will be used. So the EV generates here whatever it has. Okay, from there it generates KSME, and the MME also has KSME generated, and this will be used generate for the subsequent sequel to the CPU. And KSMI, when is shared that it's the same KSMI, then the old KSME can still be used. It will be used for security key generation. So you need case key for the ciphering or for integrity algorithm. You need a key. So that key is generated from that KSME. And also we'll see that this case will help generate the key, or it will help generate another key. And, okay, but indirectly it will be actually used to generate the key for the security algorithms for AES layer 2. Okay, so let us move to listening for AES layer. The E0B derives a key. You can see the security slides, right, guys?
Yes, sir.
So as you can see that the E0B derives some key called KENB from KSM. That's why I said that indirect thing. Okay. And that key ENB will be used to generate the keys for the security algorithms. The algorithms are very complex calculations, but it takes a few things as the input parameters. And one of the strengths of the algorithms is that you, if there is an eavesdropper, it cannot uh, retrieve the keys from the content. I mean, you use the security algorithm. You on one side, uh, the algorithm receives the data that you wanna say cipher. For example, you wanna cipher from the ciphering algorithm action. It receives the data that you want to cipher, and it also receives the key or the set of keys that you wanna use for the ciphering algorithm. So then, using them, it uses the algorithm to cipher the data, and the ciphered data will be a lot different from the actual data. A eavesdropper will not be able to hopefully retrieve what the original content was. But if you, I mean, in addition to that, it will also not be able to retrieve what the set of keys were. So neither the data nor the input keys which are used by the algorithm uh, can be retrieved. Okay, so that's the strength of the algorithm. There are few algorithms. Expo 3D will show a few names of the algorithms commonly used in 3D PPA protocols. But the strength of a particular algorithm is that how difficult for the eavesdropper to detect any of the data or the keys. Because if you know keys, if one can find out your keys, then you will also be in danger. Okay, so we know that the integrity protection is used only for control plane. So RC messages are integrity protected, and user data uses ciphering, and of course control plane uses ciphering too. Okay, so first you have to activate the security in the ASP layer. So I send security mode command, you respond. Now it can be a question whether these messages will also be security ciphered or integrity protected, okay, because control messages require, these are RC messages, between the UV and the but whether they are already, that is activating. After you activate the RC messages, from then on, all the RC messages will be both ciphered and security integrity protected. But these messages, whether they will be or they will not be, so that is not a very important detail, but I do somehow. Yeah, I mean, you first send a request and then you respond. The security mode command message is integrity protected but not ciphered. And I didn't mention, but the security mode complete message is both ciphered and security mode complete message. The response from the U is both ciphered and integrity protected. But these things are not very important. What is happening in the marginal case? Okay, it's definitely too much detail for us. Now see how we apply the ASDR. The key, the ciphering uses a ciphering stream. It generates a stream, and that stream is used for jumbling your data. So that stream is generated using. Let me jump to this slide. That stream is generated using a number of things. One of them is the KEND. Okay. See here, we have listed 5 things at the bottom. The first one is KEND that we have just talked about. KEND. Okay. I mean, both sides have to know that. And secondly, there are IDs. Okay. There are different types of messages under different radio. There are 3 SRVs, 0, 1, 2, and there can be multiple TRVs, right? The maximum there can be 8. So these ERVs are numbered from 0 through 7. So you have the radio bearer ID, and these IDs are also used. Okay. So different types of messages have different key strings. And also there is 1 bit. You use 0 and 1 for link and downlink. And the last point is the length of the cipher key stream. You are generating a key stream using all these things, all these keys. These are like keys. You generate a key stream, and that stream will be used as the input to jumble your data. So that key stream will have some length. You generate a stream of some bit length, and that length is also used in the when you generate the key stream. The fourth one, count. Okay, we will explain. It's something, well, you use which the extropper will be difficult to know. It is something that that's your packet sequence number. Okay. You're sending packets one after another. So you have sequence, like for TCP, you know that you use some sequence number that increases at every subsequent packet. Now, if you use this number, the sequence number, then that can help at every packet, if the ciphering of every packet includes where you are. Okay. And then eavesdropper, if it wants to insert something, replace something, then there can be protection against that. Okay. On one side, you know for sure where you are. Ciphering also ensures where you are. Okay. So the transmitting side is using the transmitting side definitely knows where it is. And this way it is ciphered also. Of course, it includes the sequence number in the transmitted packet. Okay. But on top of that, the way you jumble the packet also includes that number. So it's a better confirmation. However, in this case, a long number is helpful, and that number I mean, is used from this security measure. Probably remember that it is performed at the PDCP layer, the top layer of layer 2. So that the PDCP packets are generated this way, that on top of data you have some sequence number, PDCP sequence number. The DC field, D by C, that field indicates whether it is data or control plane, user plane data or control plane data. See that for PDCP, the data packet has very simple configuration. Now that count value, okay, what is used for as one of the keys, has two components: hyperframe number (HFN) and PDCP sequence number. So this hyperframe number is actually not transmitted. As you can see that the PDCP count has these two parts, but the messages carry PDCP SN, PDCP sequence number, not the hyperframe number. That is not transmitted across IR. Well, when you in the ciphering, okay, you want to show where you are, but you use a long number there. It does not wrap up very often. Okay. So you need a 32 bits long count value is used. The count value is 32 bits long. So the ciphering uh, will restart when you actually complete your countering. Your count value say gets to the end, and you need to wrap around 30 bits, whatever the bit length is. When something you increase at every data packet, and there are so many packets you're sending, at some point of time you will get to the end 9999 all nines, and then you refresh, they all become 0. So that kind of refresh in security activities in algorithms you don't want to bring very often. You make this count long, 32 bits. But if you want to transmit, if you want to include this count with your packets, every time you increase the count number, then that will be significant overhead, 32 bits long overhead. So until the PDCP SL is transmitted, the rest is assumed, the rest is calculated on the two sides. Every time PDCP SL wraps around, okay, HFN part is implemented on the two sides. Both sides transmitting receiving sides keep track. When PDCP-SN wraps around, you start from the beginning. They assume that HFN part has implemented. Accordingly, they calculate the count, and that count is used in the security algorithm. So this way, you use limited overhead, so saving of your bandwidth. However, the PTCP-SN is only 5 bits long, or SRBs. It also depends how quickly you it may wrap around. So that tells you if there is a very high data rate, too many data are flowing. Okay. So before you, the receiving end may get confused. If they can receive two sequence number, there may be still packets in the buffer. The buffer stores a lot of packets in it. So if the buffer includes two packets with the same sequence number, okay, then that can confuse. And that can happen if the sequence number is very small, you wrap around very frequently. Okay. So before the present buffer content is forwarded or processed, new packets arrive with the same sequence number, repetition of the sequence number. So if our sequence number was just 2 bits, then what they are, okay, at every 4 packet you have to repeat. So if your buffer content stores on 10 packets, then there will be repetitions. So it depends on your data flow, okay, or data rate, or actually the application, how quickly, how long the PDCP-SN should be. So it's a for you for DRDs with acknowledged mode. The PDCP-SN is always 12 bits long, and for UM there are 2 options. Okay, there are slow applications like voice. It's a slow application, so there you can use 7 bits. But for high data rate, okay, maybe you're watching a movie, so there are so many packets, high data performance. So in that case, you can use 12 bits. So that will require longer overhead. TCP packet will have overhead. So there is just a provision for only 7 bits overhead. But the rest part of 32 bits will be HFN. So if it is 12 bits, then there are 20 bits long HFN. If it is 7 bits long TCP-SN, then there will be 25 bits long HFN in the count. Got it, right? Okay, you're pretty much done. The ciphering algorithm. Uh, the basic algorithm has different types. For example, SNO 3G, AES, this kind of a particular algorithm is chosen. And the basic protocol here is called EPS, encryption algorithm, but it adopts a particular ciphering algorithm within itself. Okay, so that's pretty much about ciphering. Now we'll talk about integrity protection. Well, of course, on the receiving side, we have to retrieve the actual data so that EEA, EPS encryption algorithm on the receiving side of the work generates, uses all the keys to generate the key string, and it can decipher the description and it recover your original data. Now, integrity protection actually to protect the integrity of making sure that you don't have repetitions, you don't have deletions, this kind of thing. So here also, there are different algorithms for integrity. Okay, so 3D, AES, and EPS integrity algorithm uses one of the integrity protection algorithms. Again, you use a set of keys, okay? But instead of a key stream, you generate a code. Okay? You will not jumble your data. You will not actually uh, change the data content any longer. Rather, you generate a code using all these keys, and that code is called MAC-I. This is authentication code for integration. And the same code will also be generated at the receiving side, and it will call it XMAC-I. Okay. Now, when you send your package, you attach this code to your data content. The PDCP layer is responsible for ciphering and integrity operations. So the PDCP layer at the end, we showed the header before. Now you see there is also some fields at the end added. And what is that? That contains the MAC-I. That code you add append at the end. So that is the complete PDCP video. Well, of course, we showed the data video before, right? That was the video for data. Then you don't need that, or you don't have that. For data, you don't append anything at the end because you don't use integrity protection. But for control plane, you do. So for control plane, you have your message after PDCP-SN, and after the message, for your actual content to carry, you add the generated code MAC-I. The receiving side will generate the same thing, but it will call it XMAC-I. And then it will check whether these two match. If they don't match, understand, okay, something has happened. Well, it also uses the same kind of thing. That KENB. The first one is actually KENB. And then radio variety 1 bit, the 32-bit message. Okay? And finally, the whole RC message. Because your RC message is not too big. It's a layer 3 message. You use that, use the whole thing. It's not your active data code. You use the whole layer 3 message to generate that code. So, so that's the integrity protection, and with that, we finish discussion of security algorithm. Questions? Questions here? Well, in the morning, some of you may actually be sleeping and snoring, but this time, I hope you were awake.
Yes, sir. We are awake, sir.
It's very good. I mean, a challenge in online classes. Okay. You really have the students aware. But I don't know if the students have got smart enough to make some deals. Like this week, these two people will remain awake and respond to the teacher. Next week, some other two guys. I don't know.
No, sir. All of us remain awake, sir.
Yes. Okay. But don't.
Yes,
I mean,
we concentrate.
we concentrate. Okay. But maybe you learn this technique from me today and you start applying it from next class.
Yes, sir. From next semester, we'll apply this technique.
Okay.
From next semester.
Excellent. Okay. Okay. Now today we will discuss salary selection or handover. Okay. So that's our next topic. So the basic purpose of this presentation is to discuss mobility support, how you can manage mobility, or they will be moving, but it's still all the way connected. But in addition to that, because the part of the discussion is related, okay, we will also touch upon self-selection. But that self-selection is the part of camping that we discussed before. So this is small part in the campaign. I did not discuss there in detail, uh, as much detail as I'm using here. So because it will be more, I mean, it's helpful for you to, I mean, if I discuss it here because it relates to something called self-selection, which happens when you move. So what they are? So we can see that there are three types of processes: self-selection, selection, self-selection, self-reselection, CR, and handover. Okay, really, there are three processes. Self-selection is, as I said, that when you first camp, you select a cell and then you camp on it. So how you select? Uh, Actually, we talked about a few things like that to make sure that this key element is correct. Most uh, in most cases, that key element will be the same. Yours IMSI and the key element of the network MNC, MCC, MNC. You also need to check the radio signal strength. The cell with the best radio signal strength is the chosen. So these things are part of self-selection. You select and then you camp on it. Uh, when you move to another cell, the new cell will have its signal strength stronger. Then what you do? Okay, you feel that this is stronger, so I leave the older one and select this new one. So that is called cell reselection. Like I mean, you get a job. Okay, you may have offer it, especially after graduating from IUT. You know, I mean, you'll have lots of demand in the society. So
Thank you,
may,
sir, for the encouragement.
yeah, that really happens. Well, but okay, I mean, there are demand. There's good demand in both markets. Okay, both types of markets. You know what the second type of market is, right?
No, sir.
You guys still don't know? Okay,
Sir, is that the unemployment market?
no. I mean, one market is the employment market. The other market is the market for marriage, right? Both
Oh,
give
yes, sir. Yes.
you, right? So there's a lot of demand in both markets, and so you may have offers or proposals, offers and or proposals from these types of markets from many places. Then you select one of them. You select, maybe you select the girl, you select the job which offers you the best salary, the highest salary, or you select the girl whose father is the richest, right?
Yes, sir. That's. Oh.
So these are some tips, okay, for your future. So then you select, okay. So that is self-selection. But after a while, you find another offer or another proposal with better money, okay, so more lucrative. So then what do you do? Okay, now you leave the previous selection and pick the new one. That is the selection. So when you move to a new area, okay, and you find that the cell which the one which I selected before is now weaker compared to the signal strength from this new base station. Then you forget the old one and reselect. So that is the reselection. These things happen in RC idle mode. So both cell selection and cell reselection take place in RC idle mode. But if you were in RC connected mode, then there will be a question of resource allocation. You are already resource allocated, or you are in a state that n-time resource can be allocated. So we assume that resources are allocated to you, some data transfer is going on. So in that case, when you move to another cell, it's not that easy. Okay, you have to okay, the new cell will have to now allocate your resource because data transfer have to be initiated there, and the old data transfer connection has to stop. So you have to reestablish the data transfer path. On the new cell, a different part from your time frequency resources may be given. Actually, that changes in every subframe. So, I mean, you will be given resources from the new base station according to its choice or its loading condition. So, there will be, and also you see the base stations are connected to serving gateway at the back end. So previously it was receiving data or forwarding data to over one interface, the whole base station, the interface between whole base station and serving gateway. Maybe it's the same serving gateway. But now that data path in the core network also has to switch to a new path. Then it will be a path between your new base station and the serving gateway. This is called path switch. In the core network side, it's called path switch. So these are, I mean, there will be a lot more complexity or some processes on the network end. Okay. So these are completely separate things, and the selection. Okay. Uh, so we have self reselection and handover, and if I talk about self reselection types, then there are three types. Like you may have only one bandwidth currently deployed, say 20 megahertz deployment. Okay. In the case of LTE, you need further bandwidth. And there's another option. You can go for 10 carrier aggregation and all that. But it's also allowed that you, like 3G, you have another deployment of 20 megahertz on top of that. Okay. So two deployments, deployment of two different bandwidth on top of each other is also possible, or three or four. Okay. So in LTE it is not likely, or you may not do, even if you do, you don't do it more than two. But it is included in the specifications because it was very common in 3G. In 3G, the maximum bandwidth is 5, and when you want to increase the bandwidth offered from the network, you just have to overlay deployment of another 5, then another 5. As you want to increase from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20, whatever, you just deploy as many number of 5 megahertz bandwidth you need on top of it. So in that case, if there is a requirement that you switch from one bandwidth deployment to another bandwidth deployment, okay, then it is called inter UMTS frequencies, or in the LTE case, inter LTE frequencies. But if there is a, the new base, station, or whichever you are selecting, if that is on the same bandwidth, if it will be intra, and most likely it will be intra, but it can be also inter. The third type is RAD, which I used to work in inter. My key focus in Qualcomm was inter-RAD cell reselection and inter-RAD handover. So inter-RAD means you have some change between the generation from 2G to 3G, or 3G to 2G, or 2G to 4G, 3G to 4G, or 4G to 3G, whatever you do. Actually, these generations are considered different radio access technologies, RAD, radio access technology. So if you completely change your technology, you switch to another generation, then we call it a change of RAD or inter-RAD. So all these things we have listed for cell reselection, but they all can also take place for handover. So handover also have these three types: intra LT, inter-LT, or inter-RAD. Okay. And since I was assigned RAD activities, okay, inter-RAD activities. So they trained me both 2G and 3G. One must understand clearly 2G and 3G radio access protocols to actually find out what's happening. So I have to check whether things are working properly or not in Qualcomm chipset and related to inter-RAD. And for RAD also, the handover or the cell reselection protocols are a lot more complicated. Anyway, now there are some information on the seed messages related to different radio access technologies, like SIP 5 to SIP 8. They are all dedicated for this cell reselection mobility purposes. Among them, SIP 5 actually from SIP 3, SIP 3 to SIP 8, they all are used in mobility purposes. But if I talk about 5 to 8, then 5 contains only information for indirect LT, other frequencies. 6 contains 3G cell information around. So you may be receiving, you are on LT cell, but if it is the case that your LT signal strength has got very poor and 3G cell strength has got strong, so then it's possible that you switch. But whether or not you do that, or how you check, there are some conditions set for this type of switching. 3D to 4D. So the related information is sent here. You also need to know what empty cells are there around, okay, to switch to that. Similarly, to switch to 2G, the 2G cell may be better. Okay. Say, I mean, this type of things also happen. Or whenever you have multiple technologies, you cannot overnight deploy new technology. You like we have still 3G, right? So as you move out of the town, you'll find some area. You find yeah, when you cross some area, you'll find that there is no longer 4G and it's the 3G. So when you're crossing, at some point you will find that 4G is too old and 3G is strong. So then it will switch to 3G, okay, because of the relative field strength. So what triggers the EU to do that? Actually, it is the LT base station which gives some setting beforehand that if the 3G cells is better, okay, then I give you this condition. I give you the identity of your EMT cell around. So you can check your 3G cells around. You can keep checking them. While you are on me, you still need to check the 2G or 3G cells around. If if you suppose 2G or 3G, it will keep checking whether they exist or not. But that will be too much for it if it is completely random. So rather the LT cell provides what 3G and 2G cells there can be around. It gives a list. So it checks 2G or 3G cells only only the listed 3G or 2G cells it checks around whether they are available or not. If they are available, what their strengths are. Then it can switch. Similarly, when you again are coming back to the town, then at some point there will be switching from 3G to 4G. You are on 3G, but that 3G cell was giving you some information. So this is some broadcast information you need. So SIP messages provided. So information related to 3G cells around will be given on SIP 6 or SIP type 6. SIP type 7 will give you 2G cell list and other related relevant information. SIP 7, SIP 7 gives 2G, SIP 8, 3GPP2 cells. If it's supposed to be possible, okay, switch. Okay. It also gives you some priority. Okay. Say there are inter frequencies or inter rates. The cells, they will be given different priorities. The priority numbers are from 0 to 7. Higher number means high priority. But this part we'll go through a few slides later, and this will be clear what the priority actually works. So the UE can deselect a new cell, okay, but it has to first. You cannot change your job too often. Okay. At least you have to work for a month, right, before you again select another cell. So similarly here, you can reselect a new cell but at least 1 second, you have to 1 second, you have to allow in the current cell. Again, you select a new cell, at least 1 second, just relax. So you can reset it. Just 1 second, limited keeping distance. And some cells can be blacklisted. Speed type 4 is the listed of list of blacklisted cells. If you find any cell as you are looking around, to find any cell which is blacklisted, you cannot camp on that. We talked about some selection suitability. The suitability criterion. We didn't discuss their in detail. I said that we do it later. So this is actually the suitability criteria. That it has to be at least better than a. Okay. Of course, among the whichever cells you are listening to will be compared and you select the best one. But you also have to check whether or not it is above a threshold value. If it is not above the threshold value, then you cannot select. And that threshold value is also given by the network. Okay. So it is called QRX min. The threshold value is called QRX min. For now, forget the last two terms from the first equation. So the EV will measure the signal strength. So that the measured value is called QRX min. And then QRX min will be subtracted from that value. So it will be called as this RX lab. This comes from suitability. So if you have is RX lab positive, then you are above the threshold level. The receive signal strength is above the threshold level. So and then you can camp on that. So you have this SRX lab has to be larger than 0. Has to be larger than 0. So then fulfill the cell selection criteria, suitability criteria. But this was in release 8, release 9 added that you also check the C by I. I mean CINR condition. So that for CINR, the minimum of the threshold is also given. These are given on SIP type 1. This QRX lab mean of say, QRX lab mean or QQual mean. QQual mean is for CINR. So this minimum values are given in SIP type 1. So you can measure the CINR, the CINR of a cell. Okay. You synchronize on a cell and then measure, perform measurement there. We discuss synchronization, downlink synchronization. After downlink synchronization step, we measure the cell. And there is decide whether or not you camp on that. So again, you check whether this cell is positive or not. If both are positive, then that cell can be selected. Decompensation is something, well, every phone has a maximum output power. And that is given by the power class of the phone. So that if the network gives something, that how much power you can transmit at the maximum. And well, you know what? Usually decompensation is 0. Okay, so it's not very important that we discuss. And usually this part is 0. Your power transmission capability is higher than what the network limits you with. Pmax is the maximum value you can use, but your ability is typically higher than that. So decomposition is there. But if it is the other way around, then we need to subtract. Now the offset part is something we'll discuss later. Actually, that is to bias the offset, to bias themselves. Bias themselves. Purpose. Discuss that. Okay, but when you measure this QRX layer, or you actually quantize. We actually talked about this quantization before. Now I remember. But I said probably that the quantization I'll show you later. That you see when you are measuring the cell strength, if the measured value falls within this range, -45 dBm to -46 dBm, then you set a value 95. Okay. So some integer values are used in the layer 3 calculation for comparison purpose or suitability checking purpose. So these integer values are actually used in this equation. This is QRX slave mean, QQual mean, and also some integer values broadcast on SIP type 1. So SRX slave is calculated to check suitability. Also, you calculate it for all the cells, and the SRX slave with the highest value is chosen. Okay. The job with the highest salary is chosen. So SRX slave the highest value is chosen for camping. Similar for SRQ. This for CINR. For CINR, you have the quantity. Now, for cell reselection, also for handover, you have to measure the cells around. Well, since that it's taking a while for me, so I think in the next class we'll be able to. We still have a few minutes, but I don't think we can begin 5G this week. Like we begin in our first class in the next week. But hopefully we can complete 4G this week. Interfrequency measurements. First of all, the network can actually also dictate that you will not perform any measurement for at other frequencies. This one I want to discuss first. That when you want to perform cell reselection, if you move to another cell, then you measure like before. You measure the cell strength, okay, for all the cells around, and the cell. Well, let's assume that you have selected a cell and you have camped on that. So currently, at a particular moment, only one cell is selected as serving cell, and that's the cell you have camped on. Okay. So one cell can be your serving cell. So for your serving cell, you always keep measuring your RSRP, the integer value, and also for the neighboring cells, you keep doing that on and off. When you wake up, to measure the neighboring cells to both serving cells and in the on period of DRX. Now for serving cell, you calculate something called ranking RS by adding a value Q hysteresis to your RSRP. RSRP comes from your measurement. This Q hysteresis is also given on SIP type. For neighboring cell, you calculate also Rn, but this time you measure Q maze. Q offset is often 0. But again, if it is not 0, then that it is used to bias a cell. Okay. We'll talk about biasing later. For now, assume P of z is 0. Now, you see, this RS and RN, it will keep comparing. If RN is higher than RS, then it will trigger cell waste selection that move to that job. Okay. Forget about my current job. But you see that there is a hysteresis in that. I mean, you are not directly comparing their Q, okay, their RS are bigger. Rather, RS and RN, where you had some additional hysteresis value for RS. So RS was a little higher. RS was given some additional value. So it is little more difficult for neighboring cells to actually get a better ranking. The ranking has to, I mean, the signalization has to be higher by this value to have the ranking higher than the ranking of the serving cell. Okay. So there is a margin actually. This is a margin that the radio signal has to, of other cells have to exceed by a margin of the radio signalization of the current cell. That margin is given by this case. Then you can trigger to a new cell. Why do you need this margin? Any idea? Any idea? If you don't use a margin, then in the fading environment, we know from the discussion on small scale fading that there's continuous fluctuation in the real environment because of the multipath environment, because of the random multipath propagation environment. So because of these fluctuations, you can confuse. You can find that, well, my neighboring cell looks better than the surrounding cell. Or you may be moving a little bit within a small space. So that should not cause any cell reselection, selecting a new cell. Okay. Because if you do that, within the small fluctuations, if you suddenly find another cell better and switch to that, then in a short while, you again find that the old cell looks better. Okay. Because you are all within the small fluctuations. So sometimes a neighboring cell will look better, then the signal will be a little better, then the old cell will be a little better, then again another cell will be a little better, old cell will be a little better. So the fluctuations will cause this kind of relative status of different cells. So if you keep just selecting, as soon as you find a job with a better salary, you switch to that, then another one. But it is really difficult to revert. I mean, then you again want to revert to the old job. Well, in the real, I mean, if that kind of switching back and forth occurs, then that's of no use. Unnecessarily, you have some processes on your phone, okay, that consumes some power. Unnecessarily, you are just switching back and forth. This is called ping pong. Writing on the term. Okay. I'll add a line somewhere. This hysteresis is a margin to stop ping pong. Okay. There is also something called a key reselection. Even when you find that the new cell is better, right away you don't switch. You allow some time and see if it remains better over that whole time period. You see, here we are two cells. It is receiving, the U is receiving signal stream from two cells, that A and B. So here, actually you move to the area of beginning, you were in the area of cell, you're in the area of cell A. So cell A had better signal strength compared to cell B. But you are moving and you move to the area of cell B. So the signal starts getting little better. And as you're moving, it's better and better, better and better. But you are not still switching to the new cell. So the cell A is still shown solid. It is still on your previous cell. Why? Because the difference in the signal strength is lower than hysteresis, the margin. So you're not switching. But you keep measuring, of course. That you have to do anyway all the time. Here you find, okay, the cell B has signals higher than cell A. But readily you don't switch. You allow some, you start the timer, and when the timer expires, then you switch. This timer value is also given by the network, by the from 1 to 7 seconds. So then you switch. Okay. I mean, you are sure. I mean, over this whole time, when you start the timer, if the new cell, if the target cell remains better all the way until the timer expires, then the phone figures cell selection. It switches to the new cell. You see that, I mean, once the timer expires, the red arrow indicates the trigger. So the solid line now starts from here. You are on cell. In this we are starting cell now. Cell B is starting cell. Okay, time is so now why you need that? Again, for the same purpose, to actually protect ping pong. So both hysteresis and reselection are used for the same purpose of protection from ping pong. Okay. So questions? Wait just 1 minute. Do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, then we wrap up today. And I'll see you. I mean, I'll talk to Samir and set up time for our next class. So he already told me that, yeah.
Another thing, sir, for our next quiz, sir. So it would be better for us if we can schedule it at maybe 22 or 23rd December, because after that we have constant quizzes of other courses, sir.
Yes. Okay, sounds good. Then I'll finalize the date. I mean, later, talking with you. And the syllabus. Okay. Should we set the syllabus now?
Sir, it would be
Well,
better than.
Sir, I have another thing to say, sir.
Okay.
Sir, let's have one quiz, sir, and it would be better, sir, if you could give us like a sort of an assignment, sir. You know, an assignment that for all of the students, which might count as a quiz mark if you suggest it.
Let us talk about it in the next class. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Now let us decide the. I mean, I'll discuss with Samuel about the day of the final day of the class test. The tentative date is 23, 24 something, and the syllabus. Well, I think this self-selection handover. Okay, this whole presentation we can use for our class.
Sir, self-selection.
And that's our current discussion. We're halfway through it. Okay, or we can add something to that. If you want only this presentation, we can also use self-selection. Okay, maybe we add powering up TV to that, because that also add some related discussion. So powering up UE and our current presentation. Okay, we have
Self introduction and powering up you.
yeah, we're halfway through our current presentation. We completed in the early part of our next class. So let's include this presentation, selection, and handover. And also let's include the presentation titled Powering Up UE. Okay. So there's the syllabus. Sounds good? Okay. So I'll see you again on a day that we settle discussing with Samir. Okay, I'll let you know. But it can be say Friday night or Saturday. Okay.
Sir, I think Saturday will be better because Saturday at evening we have a quiz. After that quiz, we can have the session, sir.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, I'll post the schedule. Jazakallah for your time.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Waalaikum salam.